Good morning. This is Bob Gourley with Bob's Truth Seekers. I have the pleasure of talking to Sandy Mateer from New Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Sandy, you weren't born and raised in Pennsylvania. Where did you come from?
I was born in New Jersey and went to Douglas College and got my teaching degree there. And then I couldn't find a job back in the 70s, so I decided to go to paralegal school and went to Philadelphia. And from there I did my searching for a job in Virginia just because I loved Virginia. I had been there on vacations, as family vacations, and loved it there. And then met my husband at Westminster Presbyterian Church in Alexandria in the singles group. We called it a cappella. Yeah. And when he retired, we got married, and when he retired, he wanted to come home to New Bethlehem. He had grown up here. So that's how I ended up here. When he retired, he brought me along with him.
Well, as someone with a legal background, what inspired the shift from practicing law full-time to diving deeply into local government, nonprofits, and community projects?
Yes, going back as a paralegal, I was working with a group of attorneys doing community association law, and decided, well, I might as well go to law school and get paid the big bucks. So I went to Georgetown University and then practiced with a community association law firm for about 20 years. And then community association law has a lot to do with the same things that affect communities, boroughs and counties, dealing with contractors and budgets and all kinds of things. And so when my husband and I retired to New Bethlehem, there weren't exactly a lot of condominiums and homeowners associations around, and I didn't want to make the commute into Pittsburgh every day. So I was fortunate enough to be able to retire and dive into volunteer work, and I served on Borough Council in New Bethlehem for 16 years. And then got involved with Red Bank Renaissance. We started that as a Main Street type revitalization program. And from that, we started working on the Red Bank Valley Trail. And the Red Bank Valley Trail started officially in 2010 when Armstrong Conservancy and Allegheny Valley Land Trust took over the corridor that had been the Buffalo-Pittsburgh Railroad, and that runs right through New Bethlehem. So I was able to get involved with the very beginning of that, and I'm still on the Red Bank Valley Trails Association board. We won the first Trail of the Year in 2014. That was a program started by DCNR. And they just thought that because of our trails connections to other potential trails and to existing trails, as well as the volunteers that were so dedicated and just the beautiful scenery, they gave us the award for the first Trail of the Year. And we've tried to develop the trail. We've had some hurdles with floods and other issues, but we've gotten the trail developed. We have 20-some bridges that cross the Red Bank Creek and other creeks that feed into the Red Bank Creek. And so we've got some beautiful scenery along the trail. We're very much into history of the area, and so we've got a lot of historic markers that we've developed along the trail, because there were many natural-based industries along the trail, along the railroad. And so we've tried to highlight some of those locations, like the brick plant and the refractory and mining and lumber and many different things that were along the pottery factory in Hawthorne. And going up towards Brookville, we connect into Brookville, and we're looking hopefully to expand through other trails. We've got a 51 miles to take care of. So we're just encouraging other people to develop the trails to become part of the 200 and some mile PA Wilds Loop. And the folks in Brookville are also working on expanding with the Brookville Hub Group into Brockway, which will become part of the PA Wilds Loop. And then down at the western end, we connect with the Armstrong Trail. And the Armstrong Trail is over 50 miles now also. So they connect into the Great Allegheny Passage at Pittsburgh. So we've got tremendous potential for development in this area and business opportunities, B&Bs, restaurants, and we have some local businesses in buildings in New Bethlehem that are ripe for development. Former Rite Aid store and a family-owned business that is looking to retire, and we could definitely use another restaurant in New Bethlehem. But we do have lots of places to eat, and we've got places to stay, and it's a wonderful, wonderful place to visit. And with New Bethlehem being right in the middle of the trail, we've got potential for people to stay a couple of days and go either west or east on the trail to visit all of the communities along it. And it's very rural, so it's nice to see the scenery and the wildlife and the flowers, and yet be kind of out in wilderness. So it's just a wonderful experience.
For being an import, I'm glad that you've embraced New Bethlehem and doing everything you can to help. How far have you traveled on the trails? Have you?
All 51 miles several times. And I've visited other trails too to compare, and of course ours is best.
We had a couple people hop on and go the whole way to D.C. on the trails. And is it open from Erie down here, the whole way down yet? Or?
There are a couple of places where they're working on connections, but there are street opportunities to connect between them.
Because pretty soon we'll be able to go from Erie to D.C.
Yes.
And then from there, who knows where. Okay. You've served on the New Bethlehem Borough Council for 16 years, including as president. What are some of the biggest challenges small rural towns like New Bethlehem face today? And how do you find the solutions?
Finding people willing to serve on Borough Council is tough. Also finding people that are willing to serve on various committees, Planning Commission. It's very difficult to find people that are willing to serve, but there are plenty of opportunities to serve. The other difficulty is some of the state regulations that impose requirements on the borough that we don't have a lot of staff to be able to comply with, and regulations regarding finances are very difficult. There's a regulation that if you spend more than $25,000, you have to pay wages that are higher, and that figure hasn't been raised since the 1960s. It hasn't been indexed. So if you want to put a new roof on the borough building that costs $40,000, you end up paying $60,000 because you're paying the higher wage rates. That makes it very difficult, and I've been beating up the state legislators for a long time trying to get them to index that figure. We do have CoStars, which is a program where you can buy things through the municipal CoStars organization at a somewhat lower price because they congregate fees on that, or costs on that, so it makes it a little bit better. Just dealing with finding police service, finding contractors that are willing to do the work is very tough. For small communities, the police are having a very difficult time finding people to work. We're very fortunate here that we have the Southern Clarion County Regional Police Department, which serves Reimersburg, East Brady, and New Bethlehem, and we're looking to expand into other municipalities to cut some of the crime from other areas that come into New Bethlehem. We're right on 28, so we get a lot of traffic through from Pittsburgh, with dealing with the drug trafficking and other things, and we're working very hard to control that, but we're a very safe community compared to a lot of other communities. So it's very advantageous for people to retire here and find housing that's very affordable. And the New Bethlehem area was originally developed by some lumber interests, the Andrews Lumber Company, and so we have some beautiful homes in New Bethlehem and the surrounding area that have some beautiful wood features. So it's a great place to live. And we have so many active community organizations that if people are looking to retire here or to raise a family here, we have a very active church association. And we have, and it's wonderful because all the churches cooperate with each other and do various events together. So that's great. We have a lot of, the library is very busy. We have a wonderful historical society in an old bank building that was one of the first bank buildings in the area. So New Bethlehem has a lot of wonderful history. We've got our issues, but we're dealing with them, and we've got a lot of people working in volunteer capacities to help with that.
Looking back, what's one council decision or project you're most proud of?
Supporting trail development.
All right.
We were able to get some grants that the borough sponsored when I was on council, so that helped develop the trail right through New Bethlehem. So unlike a lot of trails, we have the trail running right through the middle of New Bethlehem, which opens a lot of business opportunities. And it's great for the residents because they can, and for the businesses because they can go out on their lunchtime and walk and, a safe location. It's great for the school kids because the trail avoids the parking areas and the businesses on Broad Street, so the kids can use the trail, so it's safe for them. So I'm very proud of having made that decision and that worked on that regard.
In your 16 years on the Board of Council, how have things changed over those 16 years? Like post-pandemic recovery, economic pressures, population shifts? We haven't been growing any.
No, the population throughout Clarion County and Jefferson County has been declining.
Yeah.
Because people are going other places to work, and but I really think it's a wonderful place to live because you have good schools with low teacher to student rates, like 1 to 10 or 1 to 20. It's when I was in school in New Jersey, if we had a class that was under 30, it was amazing. So there are a lot of opportunities here. And as far as difficulties, COVID was difficult, but we managed through it. Our police department still served everyone, and one of the difficulties is finding volunteers and paid people to work in both the volunteer fire company and the paid EMS services. That's becoming very difficult. Funding the police is difficult because the state police make $75,000 a year just coming out of the academy, and for small towns to compete with that, it's very difficult, but we have a great force right now, and we're hoping to expand to cut the overhead.
The Red Bank Valley Trail is now one of Pennsylvania's standout trails and successes. What was the spark that got the project started?
Well, old Ben Kundick always had a phrase, somebody ought to do something. And he talked about doing a trail along the creek. And then Fred McElhatton was the state representative at that time. And he was in touch with the railroads and found out that the railroads were going to abandon, or not abandon, but, they were going to abandon the line. And so Fred worked with them and with the Allegheny Valley Land Trust to rail bank the corridor to maintain it for future use if the railroad ever decided to come back. And Fred let me know that this was going on when I was on council, and so we were able to work with him and work with the Allegheny Valley Land Trust to acquire the trail, because none of the municipalities, the county, didn't want to take ownership of it. So we were able to work with Allegheny Valley Land Trust, and they helped us form the original Red Bank Valley Trails. And then we were very fortunate to have a lot of wonderful volunteers that had connections with Rosebud Mining. And Rosebud Mining lent us equipment, graders and rollers and all kinds of equipment. And we were able to work with local mining companies that had access to the crushed limestone to put down. So it took off. And, in between 2010, when Allegheny Valley Land Trust took title to the corridor, by 2011 we had trail down. So it was wonderful. We made great progress. And we also had the Climax Tunnel that had to be fixed, and so we went through all the effort of getting feasibility studies and grants to get that open, because that was at mile 17 of the trail. And the trail starts at mile 0 at the Allegheny River and goes up to mile 42 at Brookville. So Climax Tunnel was majorly important to get that done. We did get support from the county to sponsor the grants on that, and we had that open by August of 2018, which connected all 42 miles of the trail. In the interim, we had volunteers working on redecking and putting rails up on the old trestles, because that was dangerous to try to cross those without the rails.
The Climax Tunnel was you secured $2.3 million in grants. Can you walk us through that again?
That was done in at least 5 different stages. We were limited as to how much we could go for in a grant every year, and we went through the DCNR program, the C2P2 they call it, Community Partnership Program, to get $500,000 grants, and we got several of those. And then we also got some community Commonwealth Financing Authority grants. We got some smaller grants through Northwest Commission, and we're able to do the tunnel in various stages. The first step was there was a huge hole in the and on the western end, kind of looked like a monster's mouth because the top of the tunnel had 4 courses of brick covering it, and when they had originally done it, they blew too much dynamite up there and created too much of a hole, so water seeped in and caused the water to erode the brick, and then the brick fell down in this huge gaping hole. So that was the first step. To get that fixed, we put a steel liner over the top of the tunnel at both portals, because there's more freeze and thaw at each end of the tunnel near the portals. And then just over years, the steam engines and all of the steam that would come out with all of the coal created an acid type situation that caused the brick or the mortar in the brick to deteriorate. So the second step was to gunite the rest of the tunnel away from the portals. We also had a brace at one of the ends of the tunnel that was slightly shifting, so we had to fix that. So that was another phase. And then the final phase was adding, this next to the final phase was adding 80 feet on the eastern, on the eastern portal, because the tunnel was built through sort of a mountain of shale, and the rock kept coming down, blocking the portal. There's some historical accounts of that happening when the trains were going through, and the station master or the track person close to that end of the portal would have to run out there and clear all the rocks, and they sometimes had to stop the trains from coming through. And that kept happening even after we took title to the trail. And then, so we put an 80-foot extension to get it further out away from the mountain. And so the rocks wouldn't be coming down and hurting people or blocking the trail. And then Red Bank Valley Trail Association took over title to the trail in 2020, right during the pandemic. So we had worked with Allegheny Valley Land Trust doing a lot of the work in the interim, and then we got title to the trail in 2020. And so we've been continuing to try to get grants to make improvements, and we're right now in the middle of a project to put new fresh crushed limestone on the trail. And one of the challenges has been the costs have gone up so much, both for fuel and for the crushed limestone.
Trails like the Red Bank Valley aren't just for recreation, they also boost local economies through tourism and events. What impacts have you seen in Bethlehem and surrounding areas since the trail opened?
We've seen a number of B&Bs start up, and some are continuing. We're hoping to get more along the trail. We've seen coffee shops and restaurants do well with the impact of trail tourism. We have the Historical Society that gets a lot of visitors now for genealogy research. I personally have an art gallery along the trail with a number of very talented artists from our area that have their products and their artwork at the gallery. I'd love to have a bike shop in town, but a lot of bike shops throughout the counties have not been able to survive the pandemic with shortages in being able to get new bikes, but there's a possibility for that.
What advice would you give to other small communities interested in pursuing a Rails to Trails project, like common pitfalls to avoid or key first steps?
First step is to get a good bunch of volunteers, and then ones that like to go out and cut trees that have fallen down, and do work along the trail, keep the ditches clear. The next step is always a feasibility study, because you have to have a feasibility study before you can get grant money. And then just keep working on contacting your legislators in order to get support for doing grants. Get as much support as you can from your local municipalities, because it really does benefit the local economy with people coming in. They call it OPM, other people's money, coming in to benefit the community. And I've seen housing improved along the trail. When I first moved to New Bethlehem, the trail was not very far from my house, and there was a line that had been essentially not taken care of for a long time. So it was overgrown, muddy, rutted, and the houses along it, really didn't fix up. But since we've been in there and we've fixed up the trail and we have it a nice walking area and not a lot of mud, not a lot of weeds, people along the trail have fixed up their houses and yards so it overlooks the trail. And I think property values have gone up along the trail as well. So it is beneficial both for businesses as well as the local economy and municipalities to see that increase in property values.
through groups like the Red Bank Renaissance,
Renaissance, yes.
Renaissance, and owning the New Bethlehem Town Center, you focus on downtown revitalization. What's your vision for the future of Main Street and places like New Bethlehem?
Well, I think, like New Bethlehem, a lot of small communities have been hurt by the big box stores and Walmart's. You know, although Walmart is great, it's taken a lot of the small businesses out of our local main streets. And so encouraging people to have those unique little stores and having the population support those local businesses is vital. And I would love to see the old Rite Aid in New Bethlehem have a new restaurant or a new drugstore or some kind of store in there. We have Evermore's on Broad Street that is the family-owned restaurant that's looking to sell. It would be wonderful to have another family restaurant in there. But you know, if we could get a chain restaurant in there that's locally franchised, that would be great too, because we get an awful lot of traffic on Route 28, and having people fix up their facades makes a huge difference in encouraging people to stop, you know, whether at the coffee shop or the jewelry shop or any of the other businesses along the route.
You've been described as like caring for the community as if it was your own child. How do you stay motivated amid all the challenges?
It's not easy. I've always been a doer as opposed to somebody that sits in the background, so sometimes I open my mouth when I shouldn't and stick my foot in, and my husband always said, you've got to learn to say no. So I've been involved in a lot of the different organizations in town and hope to see people step up and do that, as a lot of us are getting older and, you know, as old Ben said, somebody's got to do something. So hopefully people will step up and do it.
What's your favorite spot or activity on the Red Bank Valley Trail and why?
That's hard to say because there are so many. One of my favorites is the Climax Tunnel, just because there's so much history there. Another favorite is the Long Run Bridge area, because that's where we had the huge disaster in 2019. This area's had two major floods on Friday, July 19th. In 1996 and again in 2019. And that Friday, July 19th, 2019 storm, it was 3 or 4 inches within 45 minutes, took out the old railroad trestle the culvert underneath the trail at Long Run. And my husband was one of the first ones that went down there and came back ashen-faced saying it's a disaster. And we were able to get that bridge in place along with all the concrete work and the DEP permits and the grant money and the donations done within a year to put that bridge back in place. So I was very proud of that, and it holds a lot of memories for me.
If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice about community involvement, what would it be?
Learn how to say no.
What's next on the horizon for you personally or for New Bethlehem? Any exciting projects in the works?
I'm starting to work on a book on the history of the trail. And then my husband's great-grandfather was a chaplain at Leatherwood Church here in the area, and also New Bethlehem and Licking churches. And he served in the Civil War as a chaplain for the 155th Pennsylvania. and my husband transcribed his old diaries, and we put together a book, and Terry did a lot of work on that to put together a book about all the history of the 155th and his great-grandfather's service. Well, his great-grandfather has two other diaries of his time serving the local churches. And it's very hard to read because it's in tiny little diaries in pencil and sometimes in pen, and it's faded. But I would love to be able to transcribe that and print those histories of those churches. So that's one of the things on my to-do list. As far as New Bethlehem is concerned, I'd like to see the regional police force expanded into other municipalities around the area so that we can cut down on area-wide crime. Although it's very low, we still have drug issues and other issues that need to be taken care of. And so I'd like to see the police force really be able to expand and see the appreciation of the public for that. They don't get a lot of thanks, but they're working very hard. And I'd like to see the businesses along Broad Street fill up any vacant buildings. There aren't any vacant buildings, but there are business opportunities there. And I'd like to see the facades improve and just more people support the downtown businesses.
Well, Sandy, thank you for taking time off to do this Bob's Truth Seekers podcast. I appreciate it. And if anybody has any questions or anything, just leave comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you.